Hello, I'm Kimberly and welcome to the weekend edition of the Native News Update. It's Friday, January 13th. Many of the stories you hear here can be found at IndianCountryNews.com. And here's the news for the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. The Wisconsin Assembly Republican Leadership Speaker Jeff Fitzgerald has announced that the Assembly will be in recess next week while recall petitions are submitted against Governor Scott Walker and himself, forcing the cancellation of both the Walker Jobs Committee vote on AB 426, the Gogebic Taconite or GTAC mining permit bill, that hearings were held for earlier this week in Hurley, Wisconsin. All 11 tribal nations in Wisconsin announced their forceful and full opposition to the open-pit mining project proposed by southern Wisconsin Republican legislators for the Pinocchio Range, and is opposed by many other northern Wisconsin residents, resort, and lake associations. The presentation of the recall petitions for Governor Walker will continue and be covered live by IndianCountryTV.com next Tuesday, January 17th, starting around 3 p.m. from Madison, Wisconsin. A near-unanimous California Coastal Commission and Goodell Family Trust have agreed on a settlement that would have the property owners paying a $430,000 fine for unearthing artifacts at Cogged Stone Site, the 9,000-year-old Native American village on the mesa overlooking the Balsa Chica wetlands in Huntington Beach, California. The trust must also rebury the artifacts and restore the area that was disturbed when archaeologists dug a series of deep pits on the 6-acre site without state permission. A Native American monitor must also be present for the reburials, as would have been required by law for their original excavation. On January 11th, Earthside Homes' Ed Munford appeared before the commission meeting in Santa Monica on behalf of the Goodell Family Trust to apologize after desecrating yet more sacred land, bones, and artifacts at Balsa Chica. Earthside, of course, is just the latest incarnation of the builder that has done despicable things on the culturally and environmentally sensitive coastal property for 3 decades, usually in defiance of state law. The most recent excavation was done after the property owner received permission to do surface studies that would not involve digging. Instead, 3 large pits were dug, damaging prehistoric shells, scorched rocks, animal bones, and other cultural artifacts. Funds from the settlement will be used to create an archaeological conservation project along the coast. The Menominee Tribal Election Commission has certified the official totals of the main tribal elections held on January 11th and 12th. The top 3 candidates that will be seated on the Menominee Tribal Legislature are Gary Besaw with 698 votes, Randolph Reeder with 521 votes, and Joan Delabrew with 404 votes. After a decades-long struggle, the Piscataway tribes have officially recognition as Native Americans in Maryland. Governor Martin O'Malley signed executive orders to the effect on January 9th. In addressing an enthusiastic crowd, O'Malley said the day was not just one of recognition, but one of reconciliation, and it is a day of arrival 380 years in the making. He thanked the Piscataway for their forgiveness and noted that the sense of brotherhood and generosity with which their ancestors greeted white settlers who arrived on the Ark and the Dove was often betrayed. Tribal leaders thanked the governor and gave him gifts including tobacco and the promise of arrows, commemorating the gift given when the tribe signed its last treaty. Piscataway spokesman Rico Newman said members eventually will seek federal recognition, but for now, the Piscataways will focus on such tasks as getting public institutions, including the University of Maryland, to recruit the tribe's young people. Democrat Susan Allan, a Victory Fund-endorsed candidate in a special election for Minnesota's State House, won the seat with 55.96% of the vote, making her the first out lesbian Native American elected to a state legislature. Allan, an experienced tax and tribal law attorney who has lived in the city for the past 14 years, will replace Jeff Hayden, who currently represents District 61B in South Central Minneapolis. On her website for the campaign, Allan noted, "I reflect the great diversity of our district as a Native American woman and a member of the LGBT community, and hope to bring this important voice to the state capitol to offer more balance, representative contributions, and input." In a post on her website thanking voters, Allan noted she is excited to begin work on behalf of the district. My early priorities will be to bring jobs and job training to our district, work on a fair tax system for Minnesota, and fight the discriminatory constitutional marriage amendment. It seems an unlikely concept, teenagers foregoing the immediacy of McDonald's Big Mac to don an apron, grab a meat patty, and learn how to cook their own low-fat version in the kitchen. But for a group of students at the Flandreau Indian School in South Dakota, they're doing just that while learning about bison, an animal considered sacred in their Native American culture. The students are part of a pilot project started by the Flandreau Sante Sioux Tribe and the South Dakota State University researchers to restore the cultural significance of the animal and consumption of the meats among the community members, particularly the young people. The school began preparing school meals with fresh bison meat last year as part of the pilot project. Nearly 20 professors across 5 departments at the university are involved in the project, which they hope will be used as a model among other tribes trying to revive the demand for bison. The University of Michigan has completed a formal set of regulations for repatriating Native American remains and funerary objects to qualifying tribes. The formal rules come after a 2010 update of the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, first established in 1990, that more clearly stated a museum's responsibility in returning human remains excavated from Native American graves to federally recognized tribes. Tension had existed between the university and some Native American tribes that felt UM was not adhering to the act. After the 2010 update, the university created a task force to formalize its repatriation process. UM plans to return the remains of roughly 1,600 people and 16,000 funerary objects to Native American tribes using their new policies. Those remains and objects were excavated and studied by university archaeologists and researchers over several decades. Most are stored at the school's Museum of Anthropology, but are not displayed. With a wolf pack to the west and 3 packs to the east, Colville tribal officials weren't too surprised to confirm that gray wolves were now also living on the Colville reservation. Now that it's certain, the tribal agency wants to study those wolves and find out what tribal members want to do about them. Last winter, the tribe confirmed with a DNA test of scat that they are not hybrids or dogs. Remote camera images since then show there is more than one. This winter, they've invited tribal members to fill out a questionnaire asking how they feel about gray wolves returning to the reservation, whether they're culturally or spiritually significant, or if the wolves should be hunted or trapped if there are too many. Based on the more than 90 questionnaires returned so far, wolves appear to be just as controversial among tribal members as they are in other parts of Washington. Officials now think there are at least 3 wolves and as many as 9 now living on the reservation. There is, however, no evidence yet that there is any active pack, defined by the state as a breeding male and female with pups. Mostly reports have been of lone tracks. Except for a small strip of land between Okanogan River and Highway 97, wolves are not considered endangered by the federal government on the reservation. That means that the Confederated Tribes of the Colville Reservation, a sovereign nation, will develop its own plan for managing the wolves. On January 14th, Testament vocalist Chuck Billy will be appearing at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Albuquerque, New Mexico to celebrate becoming the first Native American entertainer to be permanently featured in one of the famed establishment's memorabilia displays. Last year, the 49-year-old was also featured in the Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Indians, Up Where We Belong, Native Americans in Pop Culture exhibition. Testament is an American metal band formed in 1983, and Chuck Billy replaced former singer Steve Saga in 1986. Billy's father was raised on the Hopland Indian Reservation, which is about 2.5 hours north of San Francisco, California. Testament will be releasing their latest album, The Dark Roots of Earth, later this year via Nuclear Blast. For more information on the band, you can check out testamentlegions.com. In 1921, a Native American baseball team from Suquamish left for Japan for a barnstorming tour. On January 14th, that team will be inducted into the Kitsap Sports Hall of Fame. Suquamish's baseball team was discovered by sporting goods company Spalding, which arranged a tour against Japanese college squads. On August 10, 1921, an article from the Bremerton Searchlight read, "In efforts to secure an all-Indian ball team for the trip, the promoters have tried out practically every Indian ball team on the coast." Perhaps the most famous athlete from the team was Louis George, whose signature pitch was known as the clam ball. George's pitch rose as it approached the batter, and it used it effectively with a fastball and a curve. It is said that the promoter ditched the team and ran off with the money, some say because of early losses, some say because of poor attendance in the early going. The team forged ahead. One story said bad publicity forced the Japanese to reform the tour and help the stranded players. The team went 18-3-1. Crowds were said to reach 35,000 to 50,000. An exhibit of 23 Quileute artworks intended to debunk the tall tales of the tribal heritage told in the Twilight saga opened at the Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Indian. Behind the scenes, the real story of the Quillian Wolves opened in the See Alaska Gallery on the National Mall at the 4th Street and Independence Avenue Southwest in Washington, D.C., and will be on view through May 9th. The exhibition was organized by the Quilliute Tribe in the Seattle Art Museum, where it was on view for 1 year beginning in August of 2010. The exhibit brings together rare works of Quileute art as a counterpoint of the supernatural storyline depicted in the popular Twilight books and movies. Wolves are an important part of the Quileute legend, but werewolves, as depicted in Stephenie Meyer's popular Daydream set on the West End, never were part of the Lapush tribe's heritage. According to oral traditions, the first Quileute people were changed from a pair of wolves into human form by the transformer Quileute. Because of the creation legend, wolf imagery is prominent in Quileute art, and to this day the tribe continues to enact mass dances to honor the original supernatural connection to the wolves. And that's another roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. I'd like to thank you for joining me, and have a grand day.